Yeah, it's unbelievable, really. It's twice we've had this now in, what, 2 weeks? Just not good enough, I don't think. So guys, today we're going to follow on with our more technical sort of videos that I said we'd do for a week or two. We're going to basically show you today how to, as boring as it sounds, how to drill out a stud correctly, a broken stud. Now I know this sounds like a bit of a dull subject and it's a bit of a ball ache for us when we get one of those jobs, but it's very important that it's done correctly. If any of you guys have ever attempted to drill out a broken stud, it can go very wrong very easily. And you've got to bear in mind that whenever we do, if we go out on site to drill a stud out, a lot of the time it can be in a cylinder head or a cylinder block, and if it's done unsuccessfully and it damages the head or the block or whatever, it can be very costly to have to strip the engine and, you know, either weld it up or do whatever you have to do. So yeah, very important process. So I hope you find that interesting. But before we go on to that, I just want to discuss what is in our thumbnail and title today. So the Jaguar, the XKR, been a bit of a nightmare. We're well on the way with that now. We've had a few little setbacks. It just seems to be nearly everything you order. Some stuff you can't get from Genuine at the minute. It's on back order and they can't tell you when it's going to be. So our customer's been very patient, but yeah, we've had some setbacks and wrong parts turn up and all the rest of it. But anyway, it's over at Stuart's now. He's reassembling most of the engine. The timing chain kit that arrived was slightly wrong. The primary chains were wrong. So we've had to send that back. We've got another kit on its way. If you can think back to when we got the job, I didn't really go into depth as to why we actually ended up with the job, because the car was at Jaguar, main dealer, beforehand, and something happened with them and the customer and he lost his patience with them. And basically, by the sounds of it, they diagnosed one cylinder head on the left-hand bank had failed, and that's what they were going to do, and they quoted him for that. Didn't get round to doing it. He ended up falling out with them. They quoted him for doing this job. So this is the second incident we've had that involves a main dealer in about 2 or 3 weeks. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because, in my eyes, they're charging enough money. They're supposed to be a specialist in that type of vehicle. It astounds me how they don't do the initial checks they should do from the word go. So take this vehicle, for example. You know, they've diagnosed it a head gasket on one side, but I don't know exactly what the symptoms were when it went in, but really, when we've stripped it down, it's got 7 mounted pistons with the rings stuck in, so the compressions are going to be down. You've got 8 potential faulty injectors. The supercharger's not great. If the customer had gone ahead with this job, whatever they quoted him, they would have probably done the left-hand bank head gasket, which, in fairness, once you took the head off, there was no visible signs from the bores or the pistons on that bank that anything was wrong. So they would have done that job, they would have charged him the money, sent it out, and not long down the road, the damaged pistons on the other side that were visible, and the ones on the side that they've done, are going to create problems big time and probably scrap the block. So my feeling is, it doesn't take much for their hourly rate to, if it's giving head gasket symptoms, look into properly what has caused the head gasket to go. So overheating, you know, in our game, if they're going to get involved with doing engines and stuff like that, or doing jobs like even head gaskets, they should look into doing at least like a cylinder leakage test or a compression test. It's not much more effort. But they just don't seem to do it. And it was the same with that one recently, where they charged the customer 800 quid or whatever to do their walnut blasting, and it didn't need that. It wasn't, the symptoms weren't there to warrant doing that. So it just baffles me a little bit, guys. I don't know what you lot have to say in the comments, but yeah, you would have thought a main dealer, if anyone, are going to do the correct checks and diagnose these problems properly, but they just don't seem to be doing it in my eyes. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. So as you can see, guys, we've had another Cosworth turn up yesterday. Just got that on the engine stand now. I've got to speak to the customer. I'm going to strip it all down, see what we've got in there, and sort of give him a give him an update of what we've found. I don't know whether there's been actually any problems with this. It's a refresh and a go through. He's supplied us with another cylinder head over there, which looks to be ported slightly. So I'm going to have a look at that. And I've got a feeling he said use whichever head you think is best to use, really. So obviously once I've stripped it down and we've done some measuring, I'll sort of have a chat with him, see which way he wants to go power wise, and yeah, see which cylinder head's best to use. But yeah, always seem to have a steady stream of these Cosworths, which is great. So pretty much since Isaac's been here, all he's been doing really is cylinder heads. He's done an absolutely brilliant job. I'm going to relieve him of that. I'm going to do the last cylinder head we've got sitting on the floor here today, and I'm going to get him to strip this 4.2 Jag. So first of all, I've got him to bring it outside, give it a good spray with the TFR, and pressure wash it off, just so he's not working in sort of mounds of grease, because this thing was pretty disgusting, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is get him to take it inside in a minute and strip it down. While he's stripping it, you can sort of have a look, make notes, look at the timing, just so he knows, because he's going to be putting this back together. So hopefully over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have some footage of this being reconditioned. Could be the first proper motor that Isaac's built. Not really sure on the condition of it inside. I think it's just general wear and tear and age, and you know what the old motors are like. So yeah, this is in for a full recon, and it's got to be looking nice. You know, most of the cars that these engines are out of now either being restored or going to be restored. It's got to be just as important for it to look nice on the outside as it is to be pucker on the inside. Nice little job for Isaac. So this is one of the 20 valve Audis that we've just done. So this is the one that I put guides in and all the Supertech valves. See, all that's nice and faced up, the 3-face seats on. I showed in my last video. Just put it on the shelf, just about to do the invoice, and I forgot that the customer said, here where he's marked yellow, he's got a broken exhaust stud in there, which is nice. And fortunately, he hasn't had a go at it himself, because that can make things 10 times worse. Can't emphasise enough to some people, unless you do this right, you make it a lot worse. The trouble is, when you've got steel into an aluminium head or an aluminium thread, if you don't get it dead central and the drill wanders off into the aluminium, you've had it then, because obviously as soon as you put a bigger drill down, it's going to want to go into the softer metal as opposed to the harder. So getting it central to start with is of paramount importance. So what we've got to do, you see on the top there, we've not got a bad sort of surface. You've got to make sure that surface is fairly flat. If it's broke off a bit odd, then sort of get the grinder down there and try and trim it up. And then the next step is you've got a centre punch here, and you've got to centre punch a hole dead in the centre. So as you can see, that hole there, that punch mark, is pretty bang on in the centre. What I normally do first of all is put a very, very light punch mark, and if it's off the centre, you can normally, by sort of jiggerying the punch, you can normally pull it back into, you know, into the dead centre, and then put a nice big one in there. So now that's done, what we're going to do is we're going to block up these ports, and then we're going to run, because this is an 8mm stud, so what I'll do is I'm going to run a 4mm drill down there. So we've got our trusty drill set. Now, another thing that's very important, guys, can't emphasise enough, get a decent drill set. Don't even bother with cheap drills, absolute rubbish. All you're going to do is just blunt them and just go off centre. So a good set of sharp drills, and keep the speed down as well on the drill. Don't just go full chat and burn the end of it out, okay? So it's a matter of feel really with the drill. But yeah, so what I normally do is first of all send a drill down. It's about half the size of what the stud diameter is, so we're going to go down first with a 4mm drill. So another thing that's majorly important, although you've got a centre dot right in the centre, don't go at it with the first drill like a bull in a china shop. What you want to do is just, first of all, put a witness down there of the drill, so you're probably only going down about 1/2 mm, and then check to make sure the drill is going centre, because sometimes it can sort of wander off. So you sort of have to angle the drill quite drastically to pull that back until you get about a millimetre down, like that one there. You can see now that that drill is going to drill down in the centre. Otherwise, what you do is, if it sort of wanders off very slightly, you're just going to go down the side of the stud. So now we've pulled that back, we can sort of very carefully go down and keep checking about every mil or two. There we go, that's the first drill down. So two other things I forgot to mention is, first of all, sometimes, see here we've got studs next to them. You've got to make sure that your drill is in line, so you know that you're like this way. So sometimes what I do is get John to watch me from sort of over here to make sure that the drill is in line with these other studs. You could make a jig, I suppose, but to be honest with you, I don't like to use jigs. I like to do it freehand, so if it is going off centre, I can sort of pull it back one way or the other. But generally you want to be drilling down, so in your X and Y you are in line with the other studs, so you know you are going down that stud. And secondly, when you're breaking through the bottom of the stud, down the bottom, you need to be very careful, so you're almost easing the speed off and sort of pulling the drill back. You don't want to let the drill pull itself through the bottom of the stud, because that's when it can break. So you need to be very careful at the bottom of the stud. So now we've got a nice central hole down there. I'm going to send down a 6mm stud, 6mm drill, and try and keep that one central too. But it should be a lot easier with the next drill, because you've got a nice pilot hole to follow. So I'll run the 6mm down there with success, and then every now and again, and when you get good at this, I've run the 8mm down there, and that has cleaned it straight out. So that's just took the stud out, but you've got to be so central to do that. Sometimes what you have to do is go down with like a 7, and then it'll leave a bit in one side, and then you've got to sort of chip that out. But you very, very, very rarely get a stud out when it's like this and leave the existing thread in there. So you almost certainly have to put a helicoil in. So what we're going to do now is go down with the helicoil drill and tap, and then put a helicoil in there. We've got our helicoil kit. This is an M8 by 1.25 standard M8 kit. So these are the bits we need. We've got the helicoil, obviously. Now the helicoil, you need to trim to the length you want. So this being a standard size, a standard length helicoil, it's about 10mm, 10 or 12mm. The hole is probably about 15, so that's going to be fine in length. You've got the tapping drill, you've got the first and second tap, obviously the tap wrench, and then you've got the installer here for the helicoil. So basically what you do, there's a tag down the bottom, it locates in that, you wind it down the hole till you get to the depth you want, and then you punch that tag out and make sure that the tag is out with a magnet. So I'm going to go down with this tapping drill now, and then tap it. So there you can see, guys, the helicoil's in, nice and straight, and that job is complete. So I hope that's been some use to you if you ever decide to drill out a stud in the future. So the Jaguar here, Isaac spent most of the afternoon stripping this down. As you can see, all he's got left is half of the timing chain, crank rods and pistons left in. And looking at the engine, it is fairly tired. The gasket, the block face is horrendous, the bores look terrible. So yeah, I've told him, you know, as I said before, no time scale on this, just strip it down, take photos, take note of where the timing is and what you're taking apart. It's just, you know, stripping the thing down is almost as important as building it back up, really, in regards to remembering things and where things go. So yeah, told him to just, you know, don't just rip it apart, just learn from stripping it down. So that's exactly what he's been doing. Once we've got this thing down to a bare block, I'm going to get him to start cleaning the bits up that we're going to use again, and then get him to make a list of all the things we need to renew. So yeah, he's doing really well on that one. Well, thanks ever so much for watching, guys. Remember, do comment down below. Love to read your comments there and your views on what I've had to say today. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, guys, and we will see you in another video. You take care.